Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express, where we are taking a bit of a rest in Sofia. And that's not necessarily by design, but it is because of events that transpired during our last episode. We'd like to thank you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporter, who have enjoyed this campaign for so many years. I join our cast in thanking you for that support. If you'd like to continue to support our endeavors, Cthulhu or not, you can at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. And now I will turn to my table and begin with introductions to my right.
Hi, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who is feeling a little less lucky than he was earlier on.
Yes, it's a symptom, perhaps, that several of our other investigators, like the next one, will feel the same. To Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy, and I'm feeling unlucky and also not too well in general. A bit like a sieve.
Yes, a cheese grater, a sieve. Perhaps just your inner holiness has come out. At the end of the table.
Hi, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and boy, Sofia is not looking like the vacation spot we thought it would be.
No, too true, sir. It does not appear to be a resting point at all. To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger, and I think I finally have all of the pieces needed to form the Ultra Maggie, my final form.
Indeed, you have, as of last game, collected a head, and at that point, you are complete, so it would seem. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney, and Richard's going to need to do everything he can to stop Maggie from playing herself and becoming one with this terrible thing. But he just needs to get ahead of events first.
Indeed, he does. So we're going to pick up, as we raise the curtain tonight, about 2 days later. After the events of our last episode, which included the destruction of a roof of a very important church, military troops took over Sofia. They were deployed, they have barred people from leaving the city, and they have even stopped train traffic, which stops our investigators in their tracks from being able to move down the line towards Constantinople. This has some benefit for our investigators, as they're going to heal 4 hit points from where they're at from a restful state, or mostly restful state. Also at the beginning of this game, I'll be playing a Hand of Fate against Miss Bellinger and forcing her to have a disadvantaged die on every roll for the baleful influence of the Sedekvar simulacrum as she has completed it. Until it is either destroyed or she wears it, this disadvantaged die holds for every roll. Congratulations to you, Miss Bellinger.
Challenge accepted.
That said, 48 hours have passed. The tension overall in Sofia has ramped up. Food is beginning to become scarce. Without its normal back and forth provisions and trade allowed, farmers are not able to bring their food into markets, which does not give them any place to sell food to hotels and other restaurants in the area. The hotel is doing what it can, but there is the sense that most of you would acquire that the daily meals that you had enjoyed at the hotel previously are beginning to get a little bit, we'll say, rationed. Over the past couple of days, for you, Mr. Fraser, Paul has shared a couple of insights he has. He believes that there is something to be gained from a deeper investigation into some of the notes that he's heard Professor Courtney mention about where this mosque is. And while you cannot leave the city, Sofia does have a rather large library and university, which you potentially could secret yourself back to and do a little research.
I will relay this information to her ladyship as and when she is awake and entertaining visitors, because I'm aware that she's going to be pretty tired for most of the time and still probably in a fair bit of pain.
For you, Lady Elisabeth, getting back on your feet is a pretty troublesome matter. Although the blessing from your mother still holds true, it still helps you. Recovering from a near death or death experience is something that is altogether new to you. That said, Paul's information maybe sits a bit at the periphery of your priority list, given the fact that you still draw breath and there is a lot of information left in this tome to research. So I'd like you to tell us where you're going to focus your attention at.
My book. I'm not particularly feeling like going out all that much. It hurts too much to move, especially since being injured makes my existing pain issues worse. And I'd rather have a tome to read.
Indeed. So what you're going to do for each day, 8-hour day of study, is you're going to make me a hard intelligence roll.
I don't have any luck anymore to spend on things, so... Okay, so the first one's an 18, under 65.
Okay. So the first roll in your study reveals a intricate and very important spell that exists within this tome. And that is something called the Ritual of Cleansing. The Ritual of Cleansing seems to enable the caster to deconstruct or rip apart any links, spiritual links, that one might have to the Sedekfar simulacrum. It appears to be the only way to save someone from its grasp. It is a very potent spell, and it requires a large amount of MP used by the caster. It also rather requires some personal effect from the target of the spell, and that effect is blood of an unspecified amount. You can make the second intelligence roll if you'd like.
Mother did say I was the only one who had a chance to save Miss Bellinger, so that makes sense. Although we'll see how much blood it might take. 24? That's definitely a hard.
So the second spell that you get your greedy little eyes on is something rather curious. It seems to be a spell that would harden your skin, would potentially make you rather difficult to harm. The componentry of this spell is the most concerning one, and that is, of course, freshly flayed flesh, which is required to harden the caster's skin.
That's slightly disturbing, but hardly the worst thing that I've seen in the past few months.
I mean, it's all relative at this point.
Absolutely.
So, in systematic terms, this spell, it doesn't take very long to cast. It's a single round. It does take 10 magic points, and it also a D3 of your sanity. And as a benefit, it gives you essentially 10 points of armor versus kinetic attacks. And so while it's not extra hit points, the important thing to remember is that it is armor, and so it continues to protect you or somebody you might cast it on.
Delightful.
All right, Miss Bellinger, I'm going to come to you rather quickly here just for a moment, and I'm going to roll a single D10.
Okay, that's not ominous.
I've rolled an 8. Miss Bellinger, you're going to recover 8 points of sanity.
Ooh.
For the recovery of the head.
And
the completion of the simulacrum. So we're going to get into the meat proper here of the scene about 5 o'clock 2 days later. It is closing in on sundown. Word is that tonight the military is going to lift the ban on train travel because they are concerned that they may be leading the city into a rebellion of sorts if they continue with their military lockdown. So they are going to allow the Orient Express, among a couple of other trains, to pass through. They will be checking all passengers personally, the advisory says, This advisory is brought to you specifically by the hotel because they know that you've traveled with the Orient Express before, and they are enlightening you to it because it may be your only way out of the city and a prolonged lockdown.
So just to clarify something, is this after I've spoken to Paul? Is this like just after I've spoken to Paul, so there's not been any time to do this research?
No, this happens 2 days later.
Oh, right, well, because if Lady Elisabeth isn't wanting to go out to do the research at the university, Fraser's plan was then to go to Professor Courtney because he is a professor. He presumably has a pretty strong sense of how to find information from somewhere like a library. That's Fraser's. That's his thinking anyway.
So if you and the professor or the professor alone would like to go back to the university and plumb through the books with Paul's leads, you can happily do so.
Based on previous experience, I don't think any one of us should be going anywhere on their own. So, Professor, I'm more than happy to accompany you, unless unless you'd like to do so.
No, that'll be fine, but I guess we could all go. Many hands make light work.
Well, her ladyship will not be leaving the hotel for the time being, so at least one of us should remain here as well.
Well, why don't you stay with Lady E there, and I'll go ahead and accompany the professor, as long as we're not going into any caves.
Unless they have caves in the library, I don't believe that will be necessary.
Honestly, with the professor's luck, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'm sure you'll be able to keep him on a tight rein, Simon.
I'll take a rock. I'll be fine.
Oh, dear. Well, don't be too long. And good luck.
We'll be fine.
2 of you head off to the university. This is essentially a series of library use roles. So if you are planning on exhausting Paul's tips, there's probably about 2 days worth of library research to do. Since neither one of you have Quick Learner as the pulp talent, you'd have to take the entire 2 days, provided you don't have a very auspicious roll or two. Paul's notes seem to dovetail on a little bit of what he had heard you recount from Professor Smith. And this is in regards to a location called the Shunned Mosque. And so he points you towards the historical section of the library in the university and points you towards directly to Constantinople history. And then has a few handwritten notes there about some of the construction records at the mosques there would be good to look into.
Well then, Simon, are you going to have a look as well?
I'll go ahead, but I just hope that some of it's in English.
Yes, me too. I'm afraid I'm not. Not one for other languages.
I was going to say maybe I could figure out a Greek word or two out of 1,000, but this is not my forte, as they would say.
No, I'm afraid mine neither. It's crazy, isn't it? We come all the way to Europe and hardly one of us speaks anything at all.
Aren't you from Europe?
Well, yes, England, but I only speak English, of course.
Okay.
It's a shame everybody doesn't, but, well, there we go.
Well, apparently the English did try to make that happen.
Well, never mind. My interest is in mathematics, not politics.
Well, let's be off and hope that this is productive.
Yes. Maybe fortune will smile upon us, and Richard will have a look in the library, and he rolls a 23 and 75, so that's a hard library.
You begin your hours-long research into the construction history of mosques in Constantinople. It is a rather lengthy history as far as what they have for you arrayed, and there are any number of books that you could reference and cross-reference. The biggest thing that seems to be an impediment, the largest lodestone for you to get over, is the fact that most of these books are not written in English. Many of them are written in Greek. Some of them are even written in Arabic. And so that is going to be the biggest problem. A hard success is going to allow you some level of finding the right books, which is a benefit, but the difficulty you're going to have is how you're going to translate them. So I guess I would like to know how it is you'd prefer or would try to translate them.
In the first instance, probably look in the library for somebody that might be willing to do that for some money.
Interesting. Yeah, so the nice part about what you know already about international libraries, having been to some of them in Paris and others, is that there are usually research students that slyly wait for people who need to do research into languages that they don't know and are almost timely in their arrivals in that sense. It doesn't take you too awful long when you go to your research table nearby and you have 3 or 4 books out that one of these gentlemen in a reasonably dressed suit walks over and sort of stands nearby at the table and puts his arms around his back and just waits.
Yeah, Richard will turn around and catch his eye and take his finger from this guy's, pointing in this guy's general direction and take it down to the book. Do you speak this? He's whispering a little bit.
He steps over carefully. I do. Yes. He looks at the text a little bit. Old Arabic. Very difficult.
Yes, maybe we can come to some kind of arrangement. I'm interested in details about the construction of the mosques and anything else that might be of interest. I can pay you.
He brightens a little. Oh, certainly. Is there a specific one you're looking for? He steps over a little close to the table.
I don't know. It's difficult sometimes when you read a text. Often things occur to you as you go along. You don't necessarily know what you're going to find, of course, until you start looking. Otherwise, if you did, there would almost be no point in looking at all, would there? But yes. Well, I don't know. Something kind of like the metal construction. Whether there's any strange patterns in the fabrication, anything that may have been done for ritual purposes, the construction that was sort of synergistic. Sorry, that's probably a bit of a long word. That kind of aids a ritual, that kind of thing. The design notes, as it were.
All right. He steps over a little closer and sits down in a chair. He seems to get himself ready a little bit, and then he takes one of these books on and says, there are many mosques within Constantinople, you understand? He flips a few pages.
This one is called the Shun Mosque. I don't know if that's its real name, but that's what we know it as.
Shun?
Yes. It might be unusual. It may stand out an odd thing amongst the crowd. I don't know. Depends on what you see in there.
He flips 4 or 5 pages and then moves his hands right to left along the text. And then he gets to a very specific portion of the text and stops. This one is interesting. It looks like some of the stonework that was used came from a different section of near the Bosphorus. The stonework has some sort of a red coloring here to it. It looks like this mosque was accented with fineries to match.
Right. Okay. Well, that one might be worth investigating in more detail.
He sets the book aside. This one here this is quite the picture. You're not likely looking for this one. He scoots the book over closer towards you, and you can see a stylized picture in a beautiful art piece that was done in the book. You see the mosque has a beautiful series of fountains in front of it, and then there are these, of course, minarets. This one is very famous, the Hagia Sophia.
Is that one here?
No, it's in Constantinople.
Ah, right. It was just the name confused me there, but...
Yes, this one is... there is no shunning this mosque. It is a beauty.
It certainly looks... yes, fantastic. Well, let's keep going.
I made a library use roll for him. It's very good. He pages through another book. Oh, interesting. Look at this reference.
Right.
This is another type of text entirely. This looks like it's Greek. At least that's something that you would pick up on, Simon. This talks about This aforementioned mosque over here, he points over to the book that mentions the red one. You see here? It looks like it fell into some sort of disrepair in the 1300s. And worse yet, it looks like there was something foul happened here. And it looks like several of the portions inside of the mosque may have been burned at one point. It still exists because the mosque is an enormous structure.
Yes, this sounds like the one. What do you think, Simon?
Can you read Old Greek?
Certainly.
Simon takes out the slip of paper from his little notebook that he's been carrying around with him and shows it to him.
Now, he looks back up at you, Richard. What did we say my fee was? He smiles.
I have some sovereigns?
Some.
At least one.
We'll pay you 10 sovereigns now for your skills and discretion, sir.
That sounds like a wonderful fast talk roll, or perhaps persuade.
That's a fantastic sum of money for such a job. Some countries, that's somebody's salary for 2 years.
And that's an 18 under 30 on a persuade.
He nods. It is a wonderful sum of money, I agree. But of course, you must understand with the military lockdown in place, there's no way for me to know when I might earn such a sum again. So, be that as it may, he holds his hand out. I will take the sovereigns now.
Richard will deposit 10 sovereigns.
Very good.
You can't take it with you, can you?
No, you cannot take it with you. This is a rather older form of Greek. It speaks of an ocean voyage, one which reaches a far-off land. And in it, there's a strange name here. There's a man's name here. I can tell. It's a Roman name. Tilius Corvus. Does that mean anything to you?
And not me. Simon? Any Roman relatives?
Question, sir. Would it be odd for there to be a Roman name written in Greek instead of Latin?
Only if one was attempting to hide the true purpose or the origin of the name. It says that this Tilius Corvus sailed for some voyage to Constantinople.
Would we be able to find anything on this Tilius Corvus here in this library, do you think?
I don't know. He turns the text a little bit. It is rather strange. It's a Roman name. Even has a Roman title here. Tribune.
Does it have any dates?
It doesn't. I mean, there are no dates I see here. I can assume that this Greek text is old. Hard to determine. Where did you come by this paper?
From one of the professor's associates here. He was doing research. He had, Dr. Smith had a dig site in Greece, correct? Isn't that right, Professor?
Yes. Yes, you remember correctly.
It was from archaeology. I am definitely not really knowledgeable about Roman history or things here on this continent as much. But Tribune sounds like something out of the Bible, doesn't it? Like a title from that time period?
It would depend. A military tribune would be a man that marched with soldiers, some sort of commander. But as far as the era, you are correct. It would be far older than this trip would suggest, if the two are linked, that is. He sort of looks very inquisitive.
Professor, shall we continue looking? Because we got some information on what you were looking for with this mosque. Do you think we could at least make a try to see if we could find anything on this Corvus fella?
I think we should, yes. And maybe more on the mosque as well, if we have the time.
Well, we're here for a couple of days, so we do have a little time to burn, sir.
So if you're going to spend the next day, I'll have you both make library use rolls if you're going to research. I'll make one for your researcher as well, a man named Gustav.
I have a 34 over 30. Don't really want to spend the luck.
Your researcher the next day doesn't seem to turn up anything on Tilius Corvus. There's no reference to it. He does admit that Greek and Roman records are likely not going to be a deep portion of what the library can offer. He hopes that whatever assistance he's given you has been helpful, and he certainly hopes that you get to the bottom of whatever this Tilius Corvus may mean. He even invites you to write him at the library after you locate whatever truths you may find. With that research done, we rejoin our storyline at about 5 o'clock or so, 2 days later. Mr. Fraser, you are informed by staff at the hotel that tonight's dinner will be a bit brief. That's the way they say it. And they let you know that while they should have food for the next 3 to 4 days, they are working with the local government to obtain something a bit more substantial.
So by brief, do they mean that their food supplies are running low and they're just trying to eke it out, basically? Yeah. And I quite understand that. That's perfectly fine. I understand as well that some of the restrictions are being lifted at the moment, and it's possible that the trains may run from tonight.
It does seem that way. It seems that the several members, guests on the Orient Express, have expressed through several different means to the local government that they must be on their way, and the government has accepted their requests.
Understood. Thank you. So if I were to contact the station, there would be a very good chance that we will be able to have seats on the train leaving, I believe, at just after 7:30 tonight.
I do believe that there is a reasonable possibility you would be able to gather your berths, but I would caution you that Thomas Cook & Sons is not answering the phone. The local military is.
I understand.
And so your recommissioning your tickets there may be a charge for it.
Yes, indeed, yes. Would it be easier if I was to go down to the station in person, or would the same administration fee still apply?
It's my understanding that the employees of Thomas Cook & Sons have not been at the business for a few days.
Understood. Well, how far away are we from the station? Are we just a short walk, or...?
Yeah, it's rather close to where you are now.
I think in that case I'll go and speak to my travelling companions, and we'll decide whether or not we want to board tonight or stay here for another day. So I'll head up to her ladyship's room first of all and politely knock on the door just to see if she's available.
Okay.
Yes. Is it?
It's Mr. Fraser, your ladyship. I understand that there may be a possibility of boarding the train tonight at 7:30 in order to continue our journey onward. Would that be suitable for you, or would you prefer to leave it for another day?
I think the sooner we get out of here, the better, Mr. Fraser.
Very well, your ladyship. I will inform Miss Ballinger and Professor Courtney and Mr. Griffith when they return to the hotel. Is there anything I can do for you just now?
I don't believe so, Mr. Fraser, but thank you.
Very good, your ladyship. I will leave you to your studies, and then I'll head along to Miss Ballinger's door.
Very well.
Given that, as I understand it, we now have all the pieces of the simulacrum, and with the knowledge that they are having some sort of effect on Margaret Ballinger, I'm going to spend a moment listening at the door before I knock on it and see if she's available.
I don't know, Maggie, are you available?
You'd probably hear Maggie maybe even mumbling to herself, pacing about the room. You'd hear footsteps. Maggie's been anxious to get out, and being cooped up here and not being able to leave and is really pissing her off.
The mumbling that I hear, can I make any of it out? Does she seem to be just muttering to herself? Does it sound like she's talking to some other imaginary friend?
No, I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Maggie is partially talking to herself, partially talking to the pieces, but also just trying to figure things out. I mean, she's a 20-something-year-old woman whose best friend, Professor Smith, has spilled the tea on her boyfriend, the Comte, and so she's in a very precarious, but the Comte did say he said we could fly. And I know that Professor Smith said that I shouldn't trust him, but he's lied to us too. So I don't understand why I should trust one over the other. One of them is giving me but he has hurt me. He did hurt me for Richard. And so she's just kind of mulling over this constantly. It's been days of perseverating on these feelings of distrust and abandonment and also infatuation.
I think hearing this, Fraser, heaves a heavy sigh, girds his loins, and chaps the door.
Oh yes, come in, come in.
It's Mr. Fraser, Miss Bellinger, and I'll open the door, but I won't actually go in. Miss Bellinger, we are intending on leaving on the 7:30 train tonight. Will you be able to gather your belongings together in time?
Yes, I'll start right now. Yeah, this is fantastic news. Thank you, Mr. Fraser.
Splendid. How are you feeling today, Miss Bellinger? Well, I trust?
Oh, yes. I feel quite well. I'm in decent spirits. Physically, how am I feeling now, Mike?
You feel terrible. She probably looks like, well, you wouldn't see, but there's probably a shakiness in her voice. You probably fluctuate between having full fever sweats, between that and having chills. Your stomach is constantly upset. Your pulse races all the time, and then sometimes not at all.
Her skin is a mix of bright red and also absolute pale white.
Yes. If there is a bad way to feel physically, you are feeling it all at once.
She's been so sick, she probably hasn't even eaten for the past few days without throwing up or being physically. So she's looking weak.
If you don't mind my saying so, Miss Bellinger, you do look a little peaky.
Well, being cooped up like this and all these travels, you get sick on these trains, and I'm sure it'll pass. It's fine. I'm fine, Mr. Fraser. You don't have to worry about me.
I tell you what, I'll speak to Paul. I'll get him to mix a tonic for you to help perk you up a little bit.
Yes, whatever will make you feel better, Mr. Fraser.
Oh, well, Miss Bellinger, it's not about how I feel. It's about how you feel. And I wouldn't like to see you under the weather if we can possibly avoid it.
Oh, soon I think I'll feel fantastic, better than I ever have before. But one must go through these things in order to come out on the other side, like a butterfly in a cocoon, a butterfly that flies away.
Yes, Miss Bellinger, like a butterfly, indeed. Yes, once our journey is complete, perhaps indeed you may flit around the garden from flower to flower and so forth. I'll just go and speak to Paul now. He will back out of the room, a little flustered.
You back out of the room and head down to Paul's room, and you can hear him inside humming something.
Do I recognize it?
No, it's like a little tune he seems to be humming.
Just knock on the door.
No, enter.
Open the door. Hello, Paul. It's James here.
See him mixing something.
Oh, I hope I'm not interrupting.
No. What do you need, sir?
Oh, it's Miss Bellinger, Paul. She's she doesn't look terribly well, and she's somewhat tired, and I have noticed over the last day or so she's just been picking at her food. I wonder if you could possibly pop your head through the door and take a wee look. Her behaviour also is a little erratic, shall we say. She was speaking of butterflies and cocoons and so forth. I'm not exactly sure what she was driving at.
He turns to you. Has she finally gone mad?
I'm not in a position to make that diagnosis myself, but she was speaking to herself, and she seemed to be quite agitated. I don't know if I go so far to say mad, though. No.
He has a beaker and a very long glass stem in his hand from his doctor's bag, and sort of sets the glass stirring stem down and then very easily pours it out into a long flute of a glass, very highball glass, and then sets it aside. Well, I think I have just the thing for her now. I was sort of anticipating, with the rest of these puzzle pieces coming together, that she might sort of unravel a little bit herself.
Yes, indeed. The hotel has some victuals in that they can provide for us, so I think it will be a somewhat Spartan repast.
That's fine. We need to be moving soon.
Yes, indeed. The train, I believe, is due to be released from its hold by the military, and I'm very much hoping that we'll be able to make headway this evening.
Agreed. Well then, I will deliver this to Miss Bellinger's room, and then perhaps in just a bit see you downstairs for supper.
Splendid. What is it you're preparing there? I hope it is not one of Mr. Stevenson's potions and concoctions.
Oh, no. Have you ever had a mint julep?
A mint julep? I believe that is a cocktail of some sort, an alcoholic beverage, is it not?
It is. The road, it gets boring, and so I just continue to research and become a bit of a barman myself.
Oh, splendid. An American cocktail, I believe, from the southern states, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Little bourbon, some sugar water, maybe some ice, and I've added a little mint, and it's quite good.
Sounds very refreshing. I shall leave you to it, and I will, of course, inform Professor Courtney and Mr. Griffith of the situation when they return from their trip to the library.
Splendid. So, Maggie, you do get a visit from Paul. He drops off 2 things. Something to help you feel better, he says. It's in a very small glass. And then he gives you this mint julep. And he says you take the medicine first and the julep afterwards.
Well, I've never had a doctor recommend that I wash my medicine down with a drink, Paul.
We're in uncharted waters, and truth be told, I'm not a doctor yet anyway.
That's true. Does Paul stand there as if he's waiting for me to take it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Does his general demeanor seem nefarious? Can I make a psychology roll to see if Paul's trying to pull one over on me?
You certainly can. You are, of course, at disadvantage for this roll.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And Maggie's not great at psychologizing anyways, so my straight roll is an 81, so...
Actually, he seems very trusting in this moment. He seems like he genuinely cares about what's going to happen to you.
Okay, Paul, I appreciate this because I think that you and Mr. Fraser are absolutely correct in that I need to keep my strengths up for the rest of our trip. And I appreciate that you're doing this for me and your care for us, all of us, really. I'll swig back the medicine and chase it with a big gulp off the julep.
The medicine does not taste very good at all. The julep, however, tastes fantastic. It does help muddy the waters of the taste a little bit as it goes down. You do have a little hard time keeping it down. Unfortunately, the medicine is very strong, but one of the benefits of that medicine is that it makes you keenly awake, and it begins to energize you, and it's something to behold for a minute there. You shake a little bit. You don't really vibrate off the bed. You're not that energized, but you're fairly well energized. But he takes the glasses back from you and then says that supper will be shortly downstairs if you'd like to get ready. I think afterwards we will be leaving for the train station.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I can see why you had something for me to chase that with, but that does, it must be my empty stomach, but that does kick in fast.
'Tis the point. He turns and heads out the door. So, Professor, you and Simon return to the hotel, and as you head back upstairs towards your rooms, it's where you run into Mr. Fraser.
Simon, Richard, good to see you. I was hoping you'd be back shortly. I'm just popping out to the railway station. I'm going to arrange tickets for us tonight on the 7:35 departure of the Orient Express. I trust you had a good day and you were able to make some progress.
Not since yesterday, Jim. We still don't know who this Tilius Corvus is.
Tilius Corvus? No, it doesn't ring a bell with me.
Well, I mentioned him last night. Don't know who he is, and the professor's got the information on the mosque we were looking for.
I do.
I suppose we could get packing.
So remind me again where the name Tilius Corvus comes from.
It comes from a scrap of paper that I found at Dr. Smith's office. I'm wondering, is this something we could talk about as a group? Maybe take a small detour from here to there before we get to Constantinople?
Do we know exactly where the site is?
Professor, do you have a clue?
No, I'm afraid not. I don't know exactly where it is.
I must go to the station anyway. The staff here have provided a light meal for us, which will be ready very shortly. And then after that, I think we'll be heading out to the station to await the departure of the train. Onwards and upwards, as they say. So I'll head off out of the hotel, head down to the station. I'm going to bring some money with me because I know that a remuneration will be required from the staff currently manning the ticket office. I'm sure that the professor can furnish me with some cash from the suitcase. Well, I hope so anyway.
Oh, and is he furnishing you with money? If he is, how much is he furnishing you with?
So I'm going to bring £20 with me. I'm not going to start with £20, but I'm going to start with a tenner and keep £10 in reserve in case they get uncooperative.
Very well. So approaching the train station there in Sofia, you can tell that it's under military barricade. Even the lines that are available sort of get directed. You get funneled into a queue. You have to show your current Orient Express ticket, and that's when they allow you access towards the offices of Thomas Cook & Sons, which has been basically taken over by military.
Well, I am well used to queuing. This is not an issue for me.
Well, you don't have to queue long because there's not a whole lot of people that actually have tickets, current tickets for the Orient Express. So the queue takes maybe 15 minutes. Most people come out of the office incredulous, upset, frustrated. You hear a lot of people cursing under their breath. And that's sort of your preamble to walking into an office where there's a man behind a desk who has a very long logbook. There's a man who stands in the far corner of this maybe 10 by 10 office, sitting in a chair, having a drink and a smoke. And there's two men outside the office with rifles. You're not unfamiliar with military men, and so you can sort of only imagine what they're going to ask. They ask to see your ticket. They ask for a lot of information, where you're from, what your political leanings are.
Church of Scotland.
You get a smirk from the guy in the corner when you say Church of Scotland. And then sort of it all comes down to a series of negotiation steps. They tell you that for every passenger who wants to get back on the Orient Express, it's going to cost £3 for you to get on the train.
I will provide them with the requested fee.
They look a little surprised.
So there's going to be 6 of us. Yeah, I'll start off with kind of raising my eyebrow. £3. That's quite steep for an administration fee. Is there any possibility for a negotiation on the cost of the additional costs for the travel?
The gent in the chair in the corner takes a real long drag off his cigarette and says, "It's £3 because it's very unlikely that any of our local communists would have such money on them. Very unlikely."
Well, I can assure you, sir, I am no communist.
That's good.
And neither is her ladyship, Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy of Maplebrook.
Is that supposed to impress me, her long name?
It's supposed to show you that she is not a communist, sir. English aristocracy do not have that type of political leaning.
That much we know. You must understand there's been a travesty at our church.
I do. I have been aware of it, and it is quite disgusting, if you don't mind me saying so, that someone would do something to a house of God in that manner. I'm sick to my stomach, and I feel deeply sorrowful and regretful for you and your people and all the worshippers who are denied the possibility of attending that place to pay worship to their Lord.
It shows you what the communists are willing to do. They're willing to bomb a funeral service.
Funeral service? I'm disgusted, sir. Quite disgraceful.
And so the fee is to assist in the burials of so many who were lost inside the church when the roof caved in.
Well, of course, I am more than happy to contribute financially to assist those who require burial and, indeed, for the families that remain to mourn them.
Indeed, sir. They collect your money, and then they stamp your tickets with a very specific stamp of the crest of the town of Sofia. Present these when you queue up, and you'll be allowed to leave the city.
Very good, sir, and thank you for your time. And again, my condolences for those who have lost loved ones in this barbaric attack.
We will find them that did this and burn them out.
Aye, indeed. Well, good luck to you and Godspeed.
You exit the train station and manage your way back to the hotel. Again, not very far.
And that was only kind of partial flannel because Fraser actually does believe that it was a barbaric act of chaos and confusion and murder, frankly, on people worshipping in the house of God. And he is quite disgusted by this the situation.
Yeah, the walk back is a little quiet. People of the city are very much looking forward to having this occupation and this lockdown. And as really anybody who has experienced a true lockdown knows, it's a paranoid and the unnerving nature that atmosphere takes on afterwards is something to behold. The streets for you, James, are mostly empty, except for the occasional military vehicle and people going back and forth as needed to perhaps the river or some of the other lesser markets which are still maintaining to be open.
I think, as usual, Fraser will be keeping his eyes peeled and be alert for any possible watchers from shadowy corners and that sort of thing. But occasionally possibly wincing still from that wound that he sustained the other day. And he will make best speed back to the hotel.
So we'll rejoin the investigators together at the supper table before they leave Sofia. The meal here is, as advertised, Spartan. It is a hearty soup and bread with a little bit of cheese to go along with it. Not what you would expect from what is supposed to be a essentially 4-star hotel, but you can tell that the staff here is doing everything they possibly can to afford you every additional pleasure in that sense, where wine glasses are kept full as best they can. Drinks service has not run dry just yet, and it seems the hotel owner has secured a few more cases of wine from a nearby winemaker, and he is doing his best personally to go around and fill glasses. He is trying to make your last night in Sofia memorable. And so, have at it at the dinner table.
Professor, note down in your wee book there, £18 in administrative fees to the military forces in Sofia to allow us to board the train tonight.
My word.
It was some considerable fee. However, it seems that they are quite insistent on ensuring that no persons of a certain political persuasion leave the city.
Yes, quite. Bloody communists and their banditry ways. £18. It's disgusting.
Well, at least we'll be out of here soon.
I couldn't agree more with you, Lady Elisabeth.
Just sort of picking at my food, not really eating much. I don't feel particularly hungry. The sooner we're out of here, the better, I think. We have things to do.
Yes, indeed. I've been looking at the timetable. It is a fairly lengthy journey. There's an overnight on the train if we are headed to the final destination. And we should arrive there around midday tomorrow.
I don't like that term. It sounds so, final, if you'll excuse the pun.
Well, hopefully it will mark the culmination of the work we've been doing so far on this journey and hopefully a successful conclusion to our endeavour. Do we have an idea of exactly what we're going to do when we arrive?
No, I fear we don't. Didn't, Lady Elisabeth, wasn't there mention of some reference in your book about how we should destroy this thing?
Yes, I do believe so. Just keeping half an eye on Miss Bellinger, seeing how she's reacting to things.
Have you come across those passages yet?
Oh, yes, I too am very interested in learning about this option.
Oh, are you?
Oh, quite, yes. That is what we set out to do, isn't it?
It is.
So if there's a plan, I'd like to know about it.
Not so much a plan just yet, Miss Bellinger.
For people making psychology rolls, have at it.
Fairly reasonable judge of character. And that's a hard success, 22.
Very good.
I failed 75 over 38.
Okay.
And Simon got a 13 under 28, so actually a hard success.
Ooh. And Richard, yours is on Lady Elisabeth.
Yeah, so Richard wants to know whether Lady Elisabeth has actually found the passage in the book that tells us how to destroy this thing. That's a 50, but fortunately Richard has 61, so that's a success.
It's an awful high psychology for a maths professor. All right, so Miss Bellinger, are you attempting in any way to be deceptive about your true intents?
I kind of imagine that Maggie hasn't really eaten or slept for a few days, and now she's all drugged up. So she's
I have 63
more energetic,
psychology.
but still kind of in that daze. I did roll an 18 over 17, but then with disadvantage, I rolled an 88 over 17. So, but Maggie is genuinely interested in knowing what any of your plans are. Maybe not for the best reasons or that she'll go along with them, but she's genuinely interested in knowing about these plans.
Yeah, so I will say this. I will reveal this as the results therein, especially to Mr. Fraser and obviously to Simon, who succeeded. Miss Bellinger would like to know what you have planned. It does seem to be that she has some sort of ulterior motive. And you'll also, with the hard psychology roll, be able to suss out that she does appear to be under the effects of narcotics of some sort.
So I think I will let that pass at the dinner table, not make any comment on it. Say, well, I suppose the first thing we should do when we arrive at Constantinople is to secure lodgings in the city, and then perhaps attempt to ascertain the exact location of the mosque that we're seeking. From there, it might be worth visiting the mosque, perhaps as simple tourists, having a look around, seeing the sights of the city and so forth. Get an idea of the lay of the land, see who else might be around that might be taking an interest in either the location or indeed in us.
Finding the mosque first does seem like the best way to proceed. Excellent idea, Mr. Fraser.
Thank you, Your Ladyship.
I feel much better with a plan in place.
The wine serving continues. Fraser, you could likely ascertain, as could you, Lady Elisabeth, that the staff here is over-serving, likely because with limited food, they're trying to make sure that guests have a joyous time at dinner, and many of them are. Clearly, Simon, you're likely still drinking milk, because that's just the way you roll. But what I'd like is, I would like to call for a hard spot hidden roll. And I'll just prelude this by saying there are benefits for rolling an extreme. That way, in case anyone wants to spend any luck, they know ahead of time.
If only I still had a bucket full of luck. Never mind. Okay. That is a hard spot hidden roll. 31 under 86.
I got a 24 under 63, which is just a hard.
And you, Jazz?
59 under 61, so just a regular success.
Okay. Miss Bellinger?
It would have been an extreme, but with disadvantage, it's an 82 over 62.
But you do have all those pieces.
I do. It's worth it, I guess. Soon it will be.
Professor?
37, which is not an extreme success. But wait a minute. Is it a really good thing that we would be finding out about? Really useful.
I think that is a matter of perspective, but I will just say this. I rarely call for hard rolls, right? And I would rarely suggest that there are benefits for an extreme success.
I am going to spend the luck.
And how much luck are you spending?
Might be 24 points.
Okay. You spend 24 points of luck. So all of you who made hard successes notice that with the chipping away of time that goes on here at dinner, the city does naturally slowly begin to ease itself into evening. Given that it's April, you're not at full dusk yet. Before you have to leave, it's probably now about an hour or so into dinner. But you notice that the outside is definitely getting darker. And you notice, those of you with a hard success notice that it does seem like there are an awful lot of people outside. Now, this could be for all sorts of reasons, but the windows that sort of ring the outside of this lower portion of the hotel do have people sort of standing around. Some of these were military people, likely at one point. Those of you who've been coming in and out know that. But those of you with a hard success notice that the clothing that they're wearing is changing. There are not as many military people outside anymore. There are men in suits outside. And Richard, your eyes are drawn to the far side of the hotel. And they pick out amongst all of these bodies standing near the windows a man you've seen not since the Challenger lecture. A man who died 3 times in one night, staring in at the window at you. And beneath his face, this mustachioed man, there is a sudden bright flare. And that bright flare is flame. And there is a whoosh from the windows, all of them, as the exterior portion of the hotel is lit by flame. And so, Richard, you're the first one to see this, of course. And so you'll be allowed to take an action. All other investigators are considered surprised.
So Richard is just going to basically pile Maggie onto the floor.
Okay, you're going to dive and tackle her?
Yeah.
So this is a surprise attack. I would, for comedic sake, ask you to make a fighting brawl roll.
He's going to fail.
He's had his morning tea and now he's making his brawl roll, Miss Bellinger.
That was a 66.
You jump sort of to tackle her. All of the other investigators and the tables around you see this. The professor tackles very badly Miss Bellinger onto the floor. As you react to that, what you all hear is glass breaking, shattering around you. And the first of several torches begin getting pitched into the dining room of the hotel. People begin screaming. So we'll have a very quick series of initiative rounds. Miss Bellinger, you're going to go first because you've been flattened by a professor. Or we'll just say, not flattened completely, but he's tackled you badly, and you probably sort of squealed a little bit when he did it, and flat on your back.
This is the restaurant in the hotel, right?
It is.
We need to get to our stuff. I mean, that's obviously my main concern is that someone's coming after it. And I'm thankful for Richard's protection, but Maggie's probably going to hightail it to her room to make sure all of her stuff's there and that she can protect that.
Alrighty. So you're going to get up and you're going to run upstairs. So for you, running upstairs will take about a round or so.
Yeah.
So since there was no successful fighting brawl roll, you aren't grappled in any way, you're able to extricate yourself and run immediately upstairs towards your room. That is your action. Simon, because if memory serves correctly, you're next on 80, I think.
Yes.
So the scene is played out. Miss Bellinger has headed for the stairs. The hotel seemingly is on fire. People are screaming all around you. What are you doing?
And the hotel staff are just as shocked, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. I grab a nearby waiter or the manager, as you said, he was also going around filling cups.
Yeah. You grab someone.
Is there a back door?
Yeah, in the back.
I'm assuming he gestures that direction, right?
He does.
I rush off that direct. Simon yells out, "Jim, I'm heading for the back. Get everybody together."
Very well. So I'll then ask Lady Elisabeth on 64 when she would like to go.
I'm going to try and make my way back to my room. I do have my book with me because I never let it out of my sight if I can help it in my bag. But I need to go get anything else. And also, I'm not in much of a shape to be around getting set on fire or anything of that sort. So I'm going to leave it to the gents.
Very well. You are going to use your movement action to head back upstairs to collect your trunk. Paul will do the same. Paul moves on 70 and he will hustle up the stairs and say, "Let's get our things and get out of here."
I'm right behind you, Paul. Simon, we need our gear. You keep the back door open. I'll get our stuff. We'll come back down to join you.
That's what I'm doing. I'm going to hold the back door.
And I will run out, but I will try and find a member of staff as well and say, "Is there a back stairs? Are we down back stairs to get out the back way?"
Yeah, that way, they shout at you. You can see several members of the folks staying at the hotel are heading out that way.
Thank you. And I will shout, "Come on, Richard! Let's go!" running upstairs.
Okay, Richard.
So the first thing Richard will do when he sees Maggie trying to run away is say, where are you going? And he'll follow her.
Okay. You follow her on 50. By the end of the round, there are several more shattering sounds behind you. At least 3 or 4. These sound like they could be wine glasses breaking or bottles breaking. There's an awful lot of commotion. There were probably roughly about 20 people having dinner in the ground floor of the hotel. And so there is an enormous commotion going on. The next round is spent collecting your things. You're able to get to your steamer trunks. I am going to, as your keeper, who is always benevolent, assume that members of this investigating party were ready to go after dinner. And so it is likely they were already packed and set. And so it is just a matter of running into your room, collecting the steamer trunk, or in Miss Bellinger's case, 2 steamer trunks, because one holds the simulacrum, and then heading out the door.
I'm going to grab Simon's gear as well. If necessary, I will kick his door in if it's locked. And if there's not a member of staff to unlock it for me.
Okay. So the way this will work is on that following round, so round 3, you're going to be required to make a dex roll to make it to the back of the door.
The other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to sling my Lupara over my shoulder underneath my greatcoat, make sure it's loaded, and have it ready if I need it, because I'm fully anticipating that whatever's happening out there, it could be a communist attack, it could be nothing to do with us, but I'm kind of thinking better safe than sorry.
Okay, so if you want to stay on the same round as the rest of your investigators, then I would require a dex roll for you to pull off the preparing of the Lupara and under your trench coat, because that's a very set series of actions.
Not a problem. I will attempt that just now for you. My dex is 60. That's a fail, but I'm willing to push it if you'll accept a push.
Well, certainly. Will you please tell me how you're going to push it?
I think I'll just not sling it over my shoulder. I will just grab it. The holster is still in my bag. I'll just open my bag, open my suitcase that it's in, grab it out of it, close the suitcase up, and it'll just be in my hand in full view if necessary. And, if I see somebody else, I'll maybe try and kind of hide it under my jacket, but maybe somebody will see me running down the corridor with a shotgun in my hand.
Seems fair. Go ahead and give me a roll.
That's an 83.
So unfortunately for you, Mr. Fraser, you fumbled the shotgun. And so I am going to make a high or low roll based on literally no scientific fact at all, and see if that Lupara was in fact loaded when you were grabbing it. So that is a 51. So it was not loaded. It clatters to the ground, and so there is no concern about going off. It will cost you a round to collect it, which will put you behind the rest of the investigators making their stay.
Does that give me a chance to load it, or am I going to have to take it down with me unloaded?
You'll have to take it down with you unloaded unless you want to spend an additional round loading it.
No, I haven't got time for that.
So at the top of the third round then, Miss Bellinger, if you'll make a dexterity roll under your normal disadvantaged circumstances.
Yep.
And then we'll see if you can get out of the hotel.
Luckily, Miss Bellinger's very dexterous.
I've heard that.
So I rolled in 87 over 85, and I'm going to spend 2 luck.
You spend the luck, and you'll make it successfully out the back door. You'll see Simon as you head towards the back door, who is opening the door and holding it open for you. For your part, Simon, you have seen a lot of people flee out this door. The people, the suited gents that were in the area at one point when you first burst out the door, all they're doing is also fleeing. They blend into the crowd that were fleeing. You did see a couple of these fezzed gentlemen. They have bled into the crowd in Sofia and into the night at this point.
Are there flames at the back door as well, or were they mostly around the dining room at the front door?
Oh, they're mostly around the dining room at the front door. So far, the back door seems to be clear.
All right, Simon's going to hold the door open for everybody else if there's anyone still fleeing, and he's going to have his hand in his pocket on his pistol.
Okay, very good. Miss Bellinger breaches the back door with her steamer trunks. You can tell that she has a fairly crazed look in her eyes when she does so, but she does make it back out there. And then after that, we'll move to Paul. So we'll make a dex roll for Paul. With a 52, he does manage to get out the back door as well. He joins you, Miss Bellinger, and says, "The train station's that way," and he points.
Away we go. Maggie's headed that way.
Very good. Lady Elisabeth on 64, because, Simon is still holding the door, so we'll wait on him till the end.
Okay, 32 under 64, so it's a hard success right on.
That's good. You extricate yourself. You are also now in the back of the hotel. The main hotel room has become a little smoky at this point. A lot of the interior flooring is on fire now. And you can tell, as you specifically make your way out, you can tell that there are several what would be shattered bottles that now litter the landscape here. These are likely some sort of incendiary device that was thrown in, or several of them. All right, then. So Mr. Fraser can't leave just yet because he's waiting around upstairs, so we'll drop to Professor Courtney.
So Richard is going to keep a close eye on Maggie and ensure that she gets out of this place in one piece.
All right, very good.
You're going to want to roll from me, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. It's going to be dexterity. That's how you'll clear the building.
Ooh, 22. That's a hard success.
Oh, very good. You're close on the heels of Lady Elisabeth, and you also, with just a bit of coughing, make your way out of the ground floor of the hotel, or the first floor, depending upon what continent you live on. Mr. Fraser, having spent a round getting the Lupara back in hand, can now make your way down with your trunk and Simon's trunk. And so, since you're carrying for two, we'll go ahead and have you make a dex roll.
Let's see if I do a bit better with this one than I did the last two times. That's a 10.
That'll work. As you are the last to leave, and also having spent an additional round, when you get down to the first floor, or the ground floor, you are going to make a constitution roll to get through the smoke that exists now.
I suspected that might be the case. I'm not really able, because I'm lugging these two big trunks around with me, and not really able to get a moistened handkerchief across my face or anything, so I'm just going to have to kind of hold my breath and hope for the best. And that is a 93, which is higher than my constitution.
Indeed.
So what's the effect of this? Am I starting to kind of feel woozy? If it's like this is going to prevent me from getting out of the hotel, I am more than happy to push that roll.
I would say that it would prevent you from leaving the hotel this round. Basically, you would get to the bottom of the stairs and be overcome by the smoke that's there and not be able to get past.
Well, I think I've spent enough time messing about trying to get my Lupara sorted out. I don't have time to be held back in the hotel, so I am going to hold open my jacket, stick my head in it, and because I'm losing breath, I'm going to take a deep breath deep into my lungs, and hopefully I'm shielding the air that I'm breathing in from the smoke, and I'm not going to take an enormous lungful of smoke as I do so, and I will try again. And that is a 02.
Oh, fantastic. So you double down and find a way to get to the back door. The dining room, which was at one point, very recently, a place of relaxation and soup, is now essentially in a complete conflagration. But you exit out the back door. Simon, you see Fraser breach the back door, just smoke clinging to him as you all head out to the train station. He has your case in hand.
Simon will grab it as soon as Jim gets to the back door, and we'll both just head out since we're the last ones.
Thanks, Simon. This place is going up like a Roman candle.
Jim, whoever did it, they all melted into the crowd. They ran away. We just need to get to the station.
Let's get there. Yes.
So over the next few minutes, you hustle to the train station. There's a long series of blocks that lead you there. there's also a rather thick crowd. Everyone from the hotel and everyone nearby, and of course the ensuing incursion of military troops who are trying to come determine whether or not this is the next attack from communist forces, and then also trying to figure out a way to stop the hotel from completely burning to the ground. So the investigators flee. They do so towards the train station with their steamer trunks and other particulars in hand. They board the train shortly thereafter with their stamped tickets allowing them to leave Sofia and its military lockdown. Boarding the train that night, they get some quiet comfort, and we greet them for their final journey on the Orient Express and declare this episode at its completion. So thank you for joining us on this episode of Horror on the Orient Express. We greatly appreciate your listening ears. Thank you, and good luck.